This video is to help teach you about lab safety for the Science 8 classroom. And there's a lot of things in the Science 8 classroom that could potentially hurt you. We want to avoid accidents. And I very often equate working in the lab with working in a kitchen. A lot of the accidents that could possibly happen are similar, especially in the Science 8 classroom. Our two main ways that we could get hurt are being cut and being burned. So I want to mainly talk about those two things and some of the other pieces of safety equipment in the class. First of all, glassware. Most of you probably have not used glassware in a science classroom to the extent that we're going to this year. We're using test tubes, graduated cylinders, beakers, maybe some flasks as well. And using them in class is a very unique skill set. We need to develop and practice using these skills in working with glassware. And one of the main ways that we can help prevent an initial injury with glass is to inspect glassware on a regular basis. So I need you to help do that. And you should do the same thing in your kitchen too. So whenever you use glass, you want to go and you want to look at it to make sure there's nothing broken on it. Any small cracks or pieces that have come off. So we want to inspect it. And when you've inspected it, please take that glass, show it to me, and then I'll let you put it into the glass box. And this is the glass box, and this is where all the broken glass goes. Now, if you're doing a lab and glass does break, we want to avoid injury. And the best way to avoid getting cut by the glass is not touching it. I know you want to be helpful, but don't touch broken glass. Let me know, and I will come take care of that glass with a dustpan, and I'll dispose of that into the glass box. And it's very important that you tell me so I can dispose of it so no one gets hurt. And we have a special, trash can for glass so the custodial staff doesn't get hurt as well. One of the other things we want to keep in mind when using glassware is a primary rule, especially if we're heating it. Do not look down the glassware, whether it's a beaker or a test tube or a graduated cylinder, especially if it's being heated. Do not look down the test tube. And it's also a good idea to always minimize the amount of movement of that glassware. So usually we always leave it sitting on the desk and not moving around with it whenever possible. And always, when using heat and glassware, wear your goggles. Another way that we can get hurt in the lab is from heat. And when we heat things up, we'll use a hot plate, just like you see here. And we want to always assume that hot plate is on and it's hot. If we don't do that, we're liable to try to touch it or pick it up and we could get severely burned. And when we have anything on it, we assume that is hot as well. So we will use mitts and we will use tongs to pick things up that are hot, that have either been heated up on the hot plate or somewhere else that we're bringing into the lab. We want to make sure that we pick them up using tongs. And these are some different kinds of tongs that we have that we might be using in class this year. And again, when we are doing labs with hot plates, we want to make sure that we leave that hot plate plugged in. That way the light will stay on it that indicates that it is hot or it's not hot. And we know whether or not to put that away. So always assume the hot plate is hot. And people have been burned, and I've been burned myself on occasion, just from not being careful enough. So take care when using the hot plate. And there's lots of other rules. You have a lab safety contract, which goes through all the safety precautions you should keep in mind. I'm bringing the main ones to your attention so you kind of have an idea of the ones that we should pay the most attention to in 8th grade science. Please read through these warnings and that lab safety contract so you're familiar with it. But let's take a look at some of the safety equipment around the class now. This is the emergency off for the electricity. If you push it, some of the electricity in the class turns off. More than likely in class, we'll never have to use it because the breakers in the lab benches will go off generally before we would need to use this. This is the fire extinguisher. The fire extinguisher is used to put out things. So when things like notebooks or whatever else catch on fire, which has never happened, we would use the fire extinguisher to extinguish whatever that's on fire. This is in the back corner of the classroom, and this has a fire blanket, which is hanging from the wall. That's used to put out fires on people. So if you're on fire, someone's on fire, they get wrapped up in the blanket, stop, drop, and roll, and that'll put out the fire on the person. If you're on fire, you're not getting the shower. It's a chemical shower. And the chemical shower is if you have really harmful chemicals on you, you need to wash off. You don't put out fires with it because not all fires will be put out well with water. In fact, you could spread certain fires with certain chemicals. So we are not using any chemicals that you would need a shower with. Eye wash, you'll know if you need to use the eye wash. The eye wash, you have to put your eyes on it for 15 minutes. And you might have an idea of when you might use it if you've ever cut jalapenos and then touched your eyes and your eyes burned like crazy and you wanted to stick your head under a faucet for 15 minutes, that's when you would use the eye wash. So it's not just because you got itchy eye or you got a piece of sand in it, it is for emergencies. Now I'll show you how to use these, the eye wash in the shower. So this is it for lab safety. In the end, it's just about being mature and being aware of what's going on around you and thinking before acting. Make sure that you know what you're supposed to do in any situation, and we can all be safe together.